Hi, guys. So this is Module 6, Lesson 4, and this is our learning target today. I can determine the central idea of a section within the text. So if you think back to what a central idea is, we talked about it earlier in the year. Many times we talked about central idea. And as a reminder, central idea is what the text is mostly about. What the text is mostly about is the central idea. So what I'm going to have you do is turn your book to page 22. So turning your book to page 22, which looks like this, we're going to start by looking at just this section before we read. So I'm going to draw a little box around it. So we're looking at just this section. I'm going to reread it quickly just so we can have some background knowledge in it and to remind ourselves from Monday what this section was mostly about. So you're thinking while I'm reading, what is this section mostly about? What's the main or central idea of this section? But Christo and Jean-Claude never give up easily. All of their grand-scale outdoor works of art are the result of countless meetings with countless people over long periods of time. Talking to the public about their concerns is part of the artistic process, and issues from the environment to safety and the use of the site are incorporated into the work. Getting a yes took energy, persistence, in 26 years. Finally, in 2003, the artist signed a 43-page contract with the city, allowing the gates to go forward. The long wait was over. On February 12, 2005, Christo and Jean-Claude would transform Central Park into one huge work of art. So I'm going to first think about what are the important parts of this section? What are the important parts of this section? Let's see. So I think things that are important, I'm going to underline in a different color. Things that are important. Let's see. So all of their grand-scale outdoor works of art are the result of countless meetings with countless people over long periods of time. I think that's important. Let's see. I also think that this section is important. Getting a yes took energy, persistence in 26 years. So those two sentences, what do they tell me about Christo and Jean-Claude? What do they tell me, or what is this section mostly about? So I feel like this section is mostly about Christo and Jean-Claude showing that they do not give up easily and are thorough. So I just figured out the central idea, and I did it based on what I thought that paragraph was mostly about. I think it's mostly about telling us how they don't give up easily and how thorough they are, how much their attention to detail, and all the steps they had to go through. Okay. So that's how we find the central idea of a section. Today we're going to read the next 2 pages, and while we're reading, I want you to continue to make inferences while you read. So write down notes, pause the video so you can write down your thoughts, all of that good stuff. So, the public became more and more curious. Television and newspaper commentators argued back and forth. It seemed as if everyone had an opinion. Why would these two artists spend millions of dollars to create a gigantic artwork that would remain for only 2 weeks. Was it art? What did it mean? Why did they do it? When questioned, the artists always insisted that they make their art to please themselves. John Claude says, "Artists paint apples because they have the urge to paint apples, and if people like art, that's a bonus." Now the gates would snake through Central Park, offering a fiery burst of color on a bleak winter landscape. It was Christo and John Claude's $21 million gift to their adopted city. You had to be there to see it. You couldn't wait, because in 16 days it would all disappear. The stage was set for opening day. Enter the gates. Nobody can buy these projects. Nobody can own these projects. Nobody can charge tickets for these projects. Even we do not own these projects. Christo and Jean Claude. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As crews unfurl each saffron fabric panel into the freezing February morning, the crowd cheers. Thousands of people are gathered to watch teams of workers dressed in gray uniforms with the gates emblazoned in bright orange spread out across Central Park and set the panels free. Surrounded by Mayor Bloomberg, officials of New York City, and other well-wishers, Christo and Jean Claude laugh with joy. Like fluted columns, the nylon fabric panels seem to stand in silence for a moment. Then, with a gust of wind, they float back and forth in swaying rhythms. So here's a picture of kind of what they looked like. With Mayor Bloomberg, he must have opened up the first one. He's the mayor of New York City, or was the mayor of New York City. Okay. Look at the orange lights, says Christo. It's like a painting with nature as its canvas. The gates follows the 23 miles of walkways from 59th Street across from the fabled Plaza Hotel up to 110th Street in Harlem. It spreads in ripples of brilliant saffron weaving, circling through the footpaths of the great park, in and out, up and down, crisscrossing and rising. Old linden, oak, and maple trees hover their bare branches, forming skeletal patterns against the blue sky. The New York City skyline rises above the park. From grand brick and limestone buildings and hotels on Central Park South, spectators can get a bird's eye view of the saffron canopies, the artists say. They are like a golden river appearing and disappearing through the bare branches. People enter Central Park in a ceremonial way. It is surrounded by stone walls, says Christo. There are many entrances, each called a gate by the landscape architects, Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, who designed the park. The gates is a very ceremonial project, a festive project. Once the gates are completely unfurled, a parade of people march through them from one end of the park to the other. The fabric has a dynamic quality, says Christo. All our projects are like living objects. They are in continuous motion all the time, moving with the wind. The weather affects the way we experience the gates. On some days, the sky is flat and gray, and the fabric panels hang solidly against the dark sky. On other days, the sky is blue, and the wind is blowing. The panels flap and wave and seem to glitter in the bright light. Rain, snow, sunshine, even change in the weather gives us a new view of the work. So make sure you've taken your last note. This is the last page we're going to read for today. Your job now is to answer the question that's on Google Classroom. It's going to ask you to look at sections or paragraphs 9 through 13. So this section right there, and tell me what is the main idea or the central idea, what the text is mostly about, and give me 2 examples from the text in your writing.